channel. Hope you're well. Sorry it's late this week. I've literally just run out of time this week to do the video. Normally I have to try and do them like at the beginning of the week, like Monday or Tuesday or something, but I haven't had a chance this week, so that's why it's late. I'm hoping you're well, by the way. That was really rude of me. Didn't ask you. Hope you're well. Hope you've had a good week as well, and hope the weekend is going well so far. I've been doing the norm, which, you know, norm is the norm, isn't it? Yeah, anyway, enough of me waffling, because I'm just waffling now for the sake of waffling, really, aren't I? This week's video is a true crime video, because the last week I promised you I would do a true crime, because I haven't done one for a while. I've done my research. I've looked it all up. I've also watched a documentary type TV show that they did on this person, and I found it really interesting. I just find, I find serial killers a bit interesting. That sounds really weird, not like in a weird way, like I want to do anything terrible like that myself, because I never would, but just because I like the way, you know, people's brains, they obviously work differently to mine, because I wouldn't even dream of hurting someone, let alone killing them. So yeah, so it's quite interesting. Anyway, so hopefully you enjoy this week's video, and I'll shut up, you watch, you enjoy, and I'll see you on the other side. Enjoy the video.
John Reginald Halliday Christie was nicknamed Reg by acquaintances. He was an English serial killer and an alleged necrophiliac. He was active during the 1940s and the early 1950s. He murdered at least 8 people, including his wife Ethel, by strangling them inside his flat at 10 Rillington Place in Notting Hill in London. John Christie was born on the 8th of April 1899 near Halifax in the West Riding of Yorkshire. The 6th in a family of 7, he had troubled relationship with his father, who was a carpet designer named Ernest John Christie. He was an uncommunicative man who displayed little emotion towards his children, and he punished them for trivial offences. John was also bullied by his mother and his older sisters. On the 24th of March 1911, Christie's grandfather, David Halliday, died. He was aged 75. He died at Christie's house after a long illness. Christie later said that seeing his grandfather's body laid out on a trestle table gave him a feeling of power and well-being. A man he had once feared was now only a corpse. At the age of 11, Christie won a scholarship to Halifax Secondary School, where his favourite subject was mathematics, particularly algebra. He was also good at history and woodwork. It was later found out that Christie had an IQ of 128. Christie sang in the church choir, and he was a scout. After leaving school on the 22nd of April 1913, he entered employment as an assistant projectionist. During his later life, Christie's childhood peers described him as a queer lad who kept himself to himself, and he was not very popular. His problem with impotence began in adolescence. His first attempts at sex were failures, and he was branded Reggie Nodick and Can't Do It Christie by his peers. Christie's sexual difficulties were lifelong. Most of the time he would only perform with prostitutes. In September 1916, during the First World War, Christie enlisted in the British Army. He was called up on the 12th of April 1917 to join the 52nd Nottinghamshire and Derbyshire Regiment to serve as an infantryman. In April 1918, the regiment was dispatched to France, where Christie was seconded to the Duke of Wellington's regiment as a signalman. Christie was demobilised from the army on the 22nd of October 1919. He joined the Royal Air Force on the 13th of December 1923. but he was discharged from that on 15th August 1924. Christie married Ethel Simpson from Bradford at Halifax Town's Registry Office on the 10th of May 1920. His impotence remained and he continued to visit prostitutes. Early in the marriage, Ethel suffered a miscarriage. After 4 years of marriage, the couple separated. That year, Ethel and her siblings moved to Sheffield. In 1923, Christie moved to London. He spent the next decade in and out of prison, while Ethel remained in Yorkshire with her relatives. He was released from prison in 1934, when a couple reunited and they moved to 10 Willington Place. Christie committed his murders over a 10-year period between 1943 and 1953, usually by strangling his victims after he had rendered them unconscious with domestic gas, usually containing carbon monoxide. Some he raped as they lay unconscious. The first person Christie admitted to killing was Ruth Forrest, a 21-year Austrian worker who supplemented her income by occasionally engaging in prostitution. Christie claimed to have met her while she was soliciting clients in the snack bar in Ladbroke Grove. According to his own statements, on the 24th of August 1943, he invited her to his home to engage in sex. His wife was visiting her relatives at the time. Afterwards, Christie impulsively strangled her on his bed with a rope. He initially stowed her body beneath the floorboards of the living room, and then he buried it in the back garden the following evening. Soon after her murder, at the end of 1943, Christie resigned as a special constable. His service index card is now on display at the Metropolitan Police Museum, whilst evidence from his murders now forms part of the Crime Museum collections. The following year, he found a new employment as a clerk at Acton Radio Factory, where he met his second victim, a colleague, Muriel Amelia Eady. On the 7th of October 1944, he invited her back to his flat with the promise that he had concocted a special mixture that could cure her of her bronchitis. Eady was to inhale the mixture from a jar with the tube inserted in the top. The mixture was Friar's balsam, I think it is, which Christie used to disguise the smell of the domestic gas, which I'm assuming it must be a bit like a Vicks type stuff, because it's quite a strong smell, so that would disguise the smell of the gas. Once Eady was seated beneath her and breathing in her mixture from the tube, with her back turned, Christie inserted the second tube into the jar containing the gas tap. As she continued breathing, she inhaled the domestic gas, which soon rendered her unconscious. Domestic gas during the 1940s was coal gas, which had carbon monoxide content of 15%. Christie raped and strangled Eady before burying her alongside the Austrian woman. During Easter of 1948, Timothy Evans and his wife Beryl moved to the top floor flat at 10 Willington Place. This is where Beryl gave birth and that October to their daughter, Geraldine. In late 1949, Evans informed the police that his wife was dead. A police search of the building failed to find her body, but later a search revealed the bodies of Beryl, Geraldine and 16-week-old a male fetus in an outdoor wash house. Beryl's body had been wrapped twice in a blanket and then a tablecloth. The post-mortem revealed that both mother and daughter had been strangled and that Beryl had been physically assaulted before her death. It was shown by facial bruising. Evans at first claimed that Christie had killed his wife in a botched abortion operation, but police questioning eventually produced a confession. The alleged confession that may have been fabricated by the police, as a statement appears contrived and artificial. After being charged, though, Evans withdrew his confession and once again accused Christie, this time of both murders. On the morning of 14th December 1952, Christie strangled Ethel in her bed. She had last been seen in public 2 days earlier. Christie invented several stories to explain his wife's disappearance and to help mitigate the possibility of further inquiries being made. In reply to a letter from relatives in Sheffield, he wrote that Ethel had rheumatism and she could not write herself. And to one neighbour, he explained that she was visiting her relatives in Sheffield. Then to another, he said that she had gone to Birmingham. Christie had resigned from his job on the 6th of December and had been unemployed since then. To support himself, he sold Ethel's wedding ring and a watch on the 17th December for £2, and furniture on the 8th of January 1953, for which he received £11. He kept cutlery, 2 chairs, a mattress and his kitchen table. From the 23rd of January to the 20th of March, he received his weekly unemployment benefit of £3. On 26th of January 1953, Christie forged his wife's signature and emptied her bank account. On 27th February 1953, Christie sold some of his wife's clothing for £3 and 5 shillings. He also received a cheque for £8 on the 7th of March from the Bradford Clothing and Supply Company. Between the 19th of January and 6th of March, Christie murdered 3 more women that he had invited back to 10 Millington Place: Kathleen Maloney, Rita Nelson and Hectorina McLennan. The bodies of the 3 of his victims were found in wallpaper-covered kitchen alcove soon after he'd moved out of Millington Place. During 1953, the remains of the 2 more victims were discovered in the garden, and his wife's body was found beneath the floorboards in the front room. Christie was arrested and convicted of his wife's murder, for which he was hanged. 2 of Christie's victims were Beryl Evans and her baby daughter Geraldine, who, alongside with Beryl's husband Timothy Edward Evans, were tenants at 10 Millington Place during 1948 to 1949. The case sparked a huge controversy after Evans was charged with both murders, found guilty of the murder of his daughter and hanged in 1950. Christie was a major prosecution witness when his own crimes were discovered 3 years later. Serious doubts were raised about the integrity of Evans's conviction. Christie himself subsequently admitted killing Beryl, but not Geraldine. And now it's now generally accepted that Christie murdered both victims, and the police mishandling of the original inquiry allowed Christie to escape detection and enabled him to commit further more murders. In 2004, the High Court acknowledged that Evans did not murder either his wife or his child. So actually, he went and he was hung for something that he didn't even do. Even though he tried to tell the police that it was Christie that killed them, they wouldn't believe it. They didn't do anything about it. Therefore, Christie went on to murder 4 more people. So, in all, he was actually an awful, awful man. I know that sometimes, you hear of these awful crimes committed by these different people, and I often wonder why the police haven't done anything more and sooner, because surely they could have done something, to eradicate anybody else, I suppose. But what, I don't know. These days, obviously, things are completely different. Back in the 1940s and the 1950s, they didn't have so much technology as they do now. So, things could easily have gone out of place easily, I suppose, than what it is like now. Now, there's so much CCTV and everything around. Even people have it on their houses, and, you have dash cams and all of that these days. So people can't get away with things as easily, possibly, as they did back then. But who am I to say? Anyway, I hope you enjoyed it. See you again in the next one.
There you have it. That was a bit gruesome, wasn't it? I mean, he is a bit gruesome. He was a nasty man, to say the least, along with all the other serial killers, murderers and whatever that there's been over the years. I think when you think about it, when you sort of sit down and sort of think about the things that these people have done, it makes you wonder, doesn't it? Because isn't it shocking what sort of mind you have to go through with something like that, to even think it in the first place? Let's face it, how many of us have actually thought, do you know what, I want to kill someone? Now, no, I've never thought that. I wouldn't even want to hurt someone physically, let alone kill them. So, but to go ahead and do it, and then to go ahead after that and go, you know what, I've killed him, I've got to figure out what I'm going to do with the body afterwards. That's enough, isn't it? To blow your brain, in the sense that it's a bit of a mental thing to consider, or I don't know, it's just weird. I find it weird. I suppose because I'm not mentally unstable, so you know, that does help. Also, it just makes you wonder where these people's minds are at when they're going ahead and thinking, planning, because they must have to plan, you know, to sit there and think, oh, you know, I'm going to kill them, and then I need to think about what I'm going to do with the body and how I'm going to dispose of it and all of that stuff. And so to sit there and think about that and let that mull over in your head, you've got to be a bit, don't you, in your head anyway. So yeah. Also, because in the news here this week, we had there was a killing of 3 people, 3 members of the same family. I think it was 2 daughters and a mother, got killed in their home by a man with a what's it called, a crossbow. What the fuck is that about? I mean, shit. I think they believe that the man that did it, he was only 20 something, he was an ex-boyfriend, I think, of one of the daughters. Why he did it, who knows? I mean, why do people do these things? Anyway, so he'd been arrested anyway, and then there was something about two suitcases being found. I can't remember where it was now. And inside the suitcases was human remains. And I read about all these stories, and I do all these videos on these different killers and things. But when you hear it on the news and you hear what they've been up to and what's really, you know, and it really happens in real life, because I don't know about you, because sometimes you sort of sit back and think, God blimey, that's a bit, you know, when you read all these things. But when you actually hear on the news that it's actually happened, it's a bit blows my bloody brain, I'm telling you, because I just feel like, blimey, there is people out there that do these things, and you know, it's madness. So yeah, all a bit like that this week, isn't it? So yeah, that's a bit strange. Like I say, I suppose because I'm not mentally unstable, so well, my husband's a lucky man. Anyway, enough of me wiffly waffly on about that. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, do share your comments down below, and also give you the video a little if you liked it. I never do that. I totally agree with doing that, not, you know, with me saying that, because I don't feel like I should have to encourage you to like the video if you liked it, but there we have it. Anyway, have Have yourself a great rest of your weekend and don't do anything I wouldn't do. Keep smiling, and I'll see you again on the other side next week. Take care. Bye.